everyone is going to be disabled in their lifetime, whether by age, illness, it could be temporary. In some way, you will be disabled by your situation, your circumstance, or by society. I mean, COVID disabled all of us in OA too. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about talking about disability and really removing the stigmas and opening up that conversation, because it matters to everybody, everybody. And so does healing, because everyone has trauma in some way or another.
Yeah, 100%. Today's Into Healing guest is Jezz Chung, a multidisciplinary artist, speaker, poet, and author of This Way to Change, a gentle guide to personal transformation and collective liberation. This is Into Healing, and I'm your host, Mira Kaddoura. Hi, Jezz.
Hi, Mira.
I'm so honored to be sitting with you and so grateful that we get to do this.
It's great to be here and great to connect with you and great to have conversations that bring me a lot of fulfillment and meaning.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Reading your book was such a beautiful, intimate window into you and your life and your multi-dimensional beauty. So it's a treat to get to talk with you today and share with everyone everything that I've learned and everything that you've learned.
Oh, I'm grateful for you reading it. It's a very vulnerable thing to share your story, as you know. So I'm just so grateful for anyone receiving it with an open heart.
Yeah. You grew up feeling so different and sensitive and not really knowing kind of your place. Can you tell us a little bit about how you felt, how you navigated kind of childhood?
Oh, I had a very, very lonely childhood. I mean, lonely adulthood too, to be honest. Now I'm surrounded by community, and I literally designed my entire life around community. But I was really lonely as a kid growing up in Georgia and in a Korean immigrant household and a really religious, Christian, sheltered, conservative household at that. So for me, this like bright, shiny kid who was really expressive and had so much creativity, but didn't have access to it even within me, and then ways to channel it out. So I just had so many feelings, but no way to express it. I wasn't encouraged to have opinions. I wasn't encouraged to express myself, which was odd because my mom's actually an artist. She's an incredible painter, sculptor. She's always doing arts and crafts, but she's really, 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 really committed to religion. And so it was just something that was fundamentally kind of against my core beliefs, even before I knew that I believed in just, for me, I've always thought of all religion, all forms of religion as going back to the same source and the same tree. And for my mom, it wasn't like that. So there was just a lot of fundamental differences that just growing up in a house where you have to suppress that all the time, you just get really lonely because you end up suppressing yourself so much that you don't have access to yourself anymore, and you cut yourself off from the things in you that are the source of your aliveness.
How did that make you feel growing up that way?
It made me feel like there was something wrong with me. Like there was something wrong with me for feeling these things, for not being able to focus before I knew about my ADHD, before I knew I was autistic. I was like, why do I feel so different in social settings? Why am I like this? I just always ask myself that, why am I like this? And I write in the book, there's a poem I write about I need a different doctor. And it's me kind of telling my mom, I learned about ADHD. I'm pretty sure I have this. Like, can you just get me some sort of help? Can you get me some sort of support? And for my mom, it was just prayer was the medicine for everything, which prayer is beautiful and it's amazing, but it can't fix everything.
How old were you when you even kind of learned about ADHD?
I must have been in elementary school, and I just heard it around. And once I heard what it was, I was like, oh, that's me. I've always had trouble concentrating when everyone else seemed to be kind of doing fine. I was always one of the last people to turn in my test, always. But my mom just always thought, well, you're so smart and you get good grades, so you can't. I was, quote unquote, what people call high functioning, which is not a label I like to use. Now I like to say low support or high support, but because I was just functioning on such a excellent level of just always excelling and straight A's and working hard. And then I tested into the talented and gifted class. So my mom thought, there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah. Which there wasn't. There was nothing wrong with me. It was just that I needed different support. And it was support that no one in my family could give me. And that, hence the loneliness.
Yeah. I feel oftentimes, too, there's a lot of shame in families around, even admitting that we need support, and I'm sure that's part of maybe especially more conservative households where you feel you can't. There's just things you can't talk about, Mm-hmm. So I'm so glad that now we're getting to a point where we are talking about these things.
Yeah, because we can't talk about it if we keep denying it, if we suppress the pain. And, I mean, I've come a long way to even develop compassion and empathy for my mom through therapy and think about, wow, she didn't get the support she needed either. That's why she didn't know how to talk to me, because no one knew how to talk to her and give her the care that she needed. And she's been traumatized in so many ways that I haven't experienced. So I try to have empathy and at the same time understand that my healing is different than hers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can only give what you've been given, right? Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's just what you're capable of, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So this might be a little bit of a difficult question to answer, but in the first section of your book, The Distance, you mention in some of your poems some things around self-harm. Was that kind of part of growing up, feeling like you had to repress your emotions?
Yeah. It was something that, self-harm comes in so many different ways, right? And it's something that I like talking about things that are taboo, because then it kind of takes the shame away from it. And so much of how people experience depression just happens in silence because we're taught that it's too much to talk about it. But so I just wasn't able to talk about my pain. So there were things that I did, and I don't want to get into the details of it, but there were things that I did that I thought this was the only way I could let my pain out. And this was before I discovered art and the healing power of art. This was before I really dove deeper into my writing. This was before I just learned to express myself through different ways. And I'm still, in my 30s now. Like last week, I just discovered that I can write songs to heal. So now I've been on a songwriting frenzy. There's just things that even now I'm learning to access. But when I was young, I talk so much about access because of my love for the disability justice movement, but also because I think access comes in terms of information too, and the people in your life and the language that you have access to. So I didn't have access to my feelings. I didn't have access to I didn't know what to do. So I did what I felt was the only way to express my pain in that moment. Yeah.
On page 59, there was a whole section that I loved so much, and I wanted to ask, why are we afraid of ourselves, and where does self-hatred come from? We often think that it's an individual issue, but obviously it's not, so I'd love to have you expand on that.
Yeah. I mean, we live in this era that we're in now of, people say, late-stage capitalism, where people profit off of people's pain. That's what's happening. Instead of, I write in one of my poems about how we are so used to just prescribing people things instead of looking at the roots. And why can't we do both? Why can't we address individual systems while looking at the systemic roots? Because if not, we just keep perpetuating the cycles and it just spirals and gets worse and worse. Something that really completely fundamentally shifted the way I look at depression was reading this book, Lost Connections, Why You're Depressed and How to Find Hope. It's written by this journalist in the UK, Johann Hari. And the summary of the book is basically the roots of your depression is disconnection. Disconnection from nature, disconnection from a sense of community, from a sense of purpose, belonging, all these things that are very core human needs that because of the way that we've evolved as a society, we become more and more distant from them. So of course we're depressed. So when I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, as someone who's been depressed, literally, I can't remember a time I haven't been depressed. Like ever since I remember getting my first like suicidal ideation when I was like 7 or 10. Like I've just always carried that in me. And that's why I always say it's a miracle I'm alive. And my art is what keeps me alive. And connection and community is what does. But it's so, I think it just makes me so sad when I think about my former self or anyone thinking that, oh, I'm the problem. I can't function at the level that society is demanding of me without realizing that shouldn't be demanded of anyone, actually. This is inhumane for everybody. These conditions are inhumane. I think that's why the deeper I dug into okay, where do I need to heal? Why do I need to heal? Like, where do these wounds come from? Once I dug deeper and deeper into it, that's when I kind of get into the roots of systemic and collective. And then I realized, oh, that also in turn gives me something to fight for and something to kind of move towards and a vision, because then I'm doing it for something beyond me. And then that really gives me momentum.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So powerful. It's, when we realize we're not the problem, but there's a system that's actually not working for us.
Yes. Yeah. It's not working for anybody either. Even the people who think that they benefit from it, it's still that sort of hierarchy and domination is not good for anybody. Even the people doing the dominating, because you have to dehumanize yourself too. You're not just dehumanizing other people, you're dehumanizing yourself and thinking, well, I'm special in this way, and then you create this identity around domination, which just isn't sustainable.
Yeah, and it's, COVID as a recent example, like we breathe the same air, so
yeah, we're so interconnected.
Right? Yeah, something as simple as that has, totally showed us how we're all connected, and you're not protected, even if you're of a certain class or in a certain position, like, you get it too.
Right. That reminds me of something I learned from disability justice thinkers, that everyone is going to be disabled in their lifetime, whether by age, illness, it could be temporary. In some way, you will be disabled by your situation, your circumstance, or by society. I mean, COVID disabled all of us in OA too. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about talking about disability and really removing the stigmas and opening up that conversation, because it matters to everybody. Everybody. And so does healing, because everyone has trauma in some way or another.
Yeah, 100%. In your book, you ask the reader, how do you respond when others make mistakes? When was the last time you punished yourself for being imperfect? Tell me more about that. Once I kind of unlocked that question, I was like, whoa, there's so many different ways to look at relationships and conflict. And that's something I learned from a lot of transformative justice thinkers. And I love the work of Adrienne Maree Brown and Mia Mingus. But it's something that I learned from transformative justice and abolition in terms of how can we take this culture of harm and punishment and transform it into a culture of care and compassion. And towards others and ourselves.
Yes, exactly. Because how we treat ourselves is how we'll treat others. And how we treat others is how we'll treat ourselves. It's this kind of two-way, always exchanging. Street. But punishment, I mean, I still punish myself every single day for not feeling better, for not producing and being as productive as I want to be, for not being able to socialize to the capacity I want. Whatever it is, there's just so many ways that we think, again, like we're the failure. And then that keeps us in that cycle of just, okay, well, it's just me, despair, hopelessness, loneliness, cutting ourselves off. And then that doesn't help us actually transform the larger container that we all are within. Yeah. But punishment is something that we learn from police too, the police and prison systems, and the ways that we talk to each other and ourselves, the way that we judge others. So I just always try to bring awareness to it, knowing that we're talking about systems that have been in place for hundreds of years. We can't transform them overnight, but that a huge step is awareness. So that's why so much of my work is dedicated to that. And then that's so much of my personal practice too.
Being kind to yourself first.
Yeah, kind, gentle, compassionate. Like, what would it look like to be even more compassionate with yourself? Like, what is uncomfortably compassionate? Because then for me, my fear with that is like, if I'm not hard on myself, will I still achieve? Will I still have ambition? I have 6 Capricorn placements. My ambition is off the charts. Like, I want to do so much in life. I'm like, I want to be in movies. I want to make music. I want to do this. I want to write more books. Like, so much ambition. But then it's the compassion piece comes in when I'm doing it day to day and trying to move towards that vision.
So good. Yeah. I relate to the Capricorn. How did writing and poetry come into your life, and how has that helped you on your journey? Because I know it came pretty young.
Super young, yeah. So I experienced different forms of childhood trauma at home, and there was some violence in the house, and poetry was the way I escaped. Poetry was where I found safety and comfort, and poetry was a way I could just put my thoughts onto paper and have someone to talk to. I didn't have anyone to talk to at home. So in a way that I would really be listened to. So I learned to turn to literature, and I was a nerd for books. There was, did you have Scholastic book fairs? Yeah, I would get so many books at the Scholastic book fair and come home and just voraciously read. And so I just dove into books and the worlds that people built. And that was my first time learning that I could build my own world. So I wrote a lot of poetry. I just journaled a lot. I would just write down my feelings, and just sometimes when I would get so angry and so mad, nothing would come. I would just scribble like all across the page to just get something out.
There's so much power in just like letting things out, right?
Yeah. So that doesn't stay in and then harden and calcify and turn into
fester.
Yes, and that I feel like that was what turns into cruelty, and that's what turns into like, well, nobody did this for me, so I had to punish myself, so I'm gonna punish others too. And that's why I think when we practice that compassion to ourselves, that radical compassion, then we know, well, if I deserve this, someone else deserves it too. Yeah.
So we both grew up in advertising.
Yes.
And we both know the impact of this industry on our bodies, on our minds, on our souls, especially as people of color.
Yes.
I want to dig into that. I read that you wrote, after years of feeling burnt out, excluded, and enraged in environments that weren't designed to support my success, I needed to reevaluate my life. Whose dreams was I helping fulfill? What patterns of harm was I helping perpetuate? How much agency did I have in the life I was living? And was I even enjoying it day to day? How has being in advertising impacted you, especially as a queer, neurodivergent person of color?
Oh gosh, there was just so much of me trying to fit myself into a place that, looking back, I really didn't belong. I tried to make myself belong, and I was tokenized, of course, because I was seen as like the cool young person who knows what's in, and I would be brought in, and there were times where people would literally just say, okay, what are like the trendy words to use right now, and then just take notes, and then I'm just kicked out of the meeting. Like, that was just literally like token example of being tokenized. And it was just, I've done enough healing around my experiences too to have some gratitude for it. I learned a lot. I learned how to survive in environments that were not designed for my success. I learned how to find community. Community is what got me through. Oh my gosh, so many literal lifelines of me calling people, people calling me, and us just confiding in each other because we're gaslit all the time, every day. And so we call each other and we're like, hey, how should I navigate this? And then when someone gets enraged for me, oh, how validating. When I'm like, oh, yeah, actually, that is really, really messed up. Like, I should be angrier. And it was me trying to, before kind of coming into my calling as an actor, performer, and multidisciplinary artist, I just thought that was the safest and most stable way for me to pursue a creative career and make a living, because there was no backup plan. Like, for me, going back home is not an option. So I figured, okay, I'll just pursue this as much as I can. And I did for almost 8 years. I just went, and I saw myself as a creative director. I ended up going to Cannes Lion and thinking like, oh, getting a peek behind the curtain and thinking, okay, this is what my life could be in 10 years or so. But looking ahead, I thought, this doesn't feel aligned with me. This doesn't feel like what I'm meant to be doing. And this doesn't feel like my dream. It feels like the dream that I tried to convince myself to have. And then the pandemic changed everything. Like, once 2020 hit and 2020 exacerbated all our inequities, it kind of clarified things and made me have a deeper discernment and changed my community. I mean, it changed my identity too. That's when I realized, oh, okay, what does my queerness mean to me? What does it mean to be non-binary? How can I divest from gender binaries? Oh my gosh, I'm autistic. Oh, also disabled. This explains a lot. Like, I went through every fundamental identity shift that a person can go through in 2020. And after that, I was like, I am changing so much, my life has to change too. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm looking at. Yeah.
So you told me when we talked earlier that when you were in the industry, you didn't need to think about your body because nobody else thought about their body, and that was just part of the culture.
Yeah.
So was there a moment that changed that, or was it just the pandemic?
There were a few moments. I mean, speaking of the body, because sometimes, you know, your mind is thinking like, we can do this, and your body's like, we are not going to do this. We refuse to do this. We can't do this anymore. And so it happened when I moved to New York in 2018 to work at an ad agency as a copywriter. And then even in that job, I thought, okay, I feel like, I got a new job at this, at another advertising agency. I'm working in Soho and I'm in New York City. Like, everything should be great, right? And I would go to the bathroom and have panic attacks. My body just I'd be in the bathroom, like, couldn't breathe, feeling so dizzy. Everything was had major vertigo, heart palpitations. My body was giving me very clear signals, you are not meant to be here. And that's when I thought, okay, well, I ended up trying to leave, and then I had a really good relationship with the people on the HR culture team, and they said, well, what would help you stay? And I said, well, I want to do something completely different. I want to make my own role. And that's when I ended up making a role around diversity, equity, inclusion through the lens of creativity and wellness, because I didn't see anyone really doing that. And so I did that for a year, and that was fulfilling for the time it was. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity, but it still wasn't in full alignment with what I needed to do and where I needed to go in life.
Yeah. When you started on your healing journey, you realized that you were going to do this work for the rest of your life, and that you were going to be healing with, I think this is exactly what you said, workplace trauma, racial trauma, gender trauma, disability trauma, childhood trauma. So I mean,
all the traumas.
Tell us all about, tell us about that. Tell us about kind of this epiphany that you had about how there's all these layers that you had to start unpacking.
Yeah. I mean, I I actually love studying trauma. I love studying trauma because, and there's this language we've seen over the past maybe couple of years of being trauma informed. And I think that's so beautiful because once you are informed in how trauma works, how it lives in the body, how it shows up, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses.
And flop now we've learned.
And flop that we've learned, new one. And once we learn all these things, we realize it's so involuntary or people aren't conscious of it. And so I think for me, being trauma informed is equivalent to just becoming aware of trauma and the role that it plays in relationships, in our relationship to ourselves, in our relationship to work. So I thought it was important to name all those traumas because I think to be alive is to be traumatized. You can go outside, and for me as an autistic person living in New York, I go outside and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel traumatized from all the noise. And also we hurt each other and we harm each other because that's what we do as people. That's just
we're human.
We're human, yeah.
Even with our best intentions, sometimes we cause harm.
Exactly. And so just kind of talking about that and bringing awareness to it, and then the antidote to that can be connection and bringing awareness to different modalities of healing and just making it feel like, I guess now I'm in these circles that are so healing focused. And this is something I talk about all the time with friends. But I think when I was younger, it was like, oh, you have a therapist? Why? Or there was this stigma.
Shame and
exactly.
stigma,
And like, why do you need to heal? What happened to you?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm alive. That's what happened. I think now we're realizing actually everyone needs healing because these times are so traumatizing.
Yeah, I finally feel like there's language, too, to be able to talk about this stuff, too.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, I didn't even have the word boundary.
Oh, gosh.
know?
There was no such thing.
Yeah, like now I realize, like, oh, advertising, the industry, like there's no boundaries.
No, not at all.
Like, I'm like, I didn't even have that word to articulate that, you know? Like, it's just, oh, you want to have a meeting at 10 p.m.? Sure. You want to have a meeting at 10 a.m. on Sunday? Sure.
Exactly. Exactly. So much sacrifice. Like, you're just expected to be a machine or a robot.
Yeah. So your healing journey started in 2018, but really started to deepen in 2020 when you quit. You know, that really made room for your queerness and allow you to discover that you were autistic. How did starting on your healing journey open up to queerness and neurodivergence? And how has that been really profound on your journey to liberation?
That's a beautiful question. Oh, because it is all connected. It is all connected. If I'm this vessel and I don't have access to myself because I'm believing all these lies or limiting beliefs or things that I've been taught either from my family or by culture at large, it's such a... We're in these times where we have to know ourselves. Audre Lorde says, if you don't define yourself for yourself, you'll get eaten up and chewed up by everyone else's definition. So I think once I kind of discovered, you know, revolutionary writers and thinkers like Audre Lorde, like Grace Lee Boggs, James Baldwin, June Jordan, all these people, then I finally had a sort of guiding star for me to look at and say, okay, there's people who have found themselves despite the systems who have tried to suppress them. And what did that look like? And once I got those models, and then once I found myself kind of just developing more friendships with queer people, then I started connecting the dots and realizing, oh, wait, the source of my trauma is a lot of religious trauma. That kept me from my queerness for so long because I had so much shame and I punished myself and I thought, I'm not supposed to be like this, so I'm just going to pretend like I'm like everyone else.
Or this is wrong.
This is wrong, yeah. Thinking that there's something wrong with me. And I've been in ketamine therapy for about 2 years now, and my summary of ketamine therapy is I've learned how to accept myself, which is so hard. That's the hardest part about healing for me, to just be like, wait, this is what happened, or to name things, because it's so scary to kind of open that up. And then to say, oh, there's so much grief that happens also because I look back at my life and think, wait, I could have been talking to myself like that the whole time, or someone could have told me that earlier and could have saved me from all that stress and spiraling. Oh gosh. And then, so I grieve former versions of myself. I'll do a lot of visualization exercises and quantum field. I love studying quantum field theory and quantum mechanics and thinking about myself in other dimensions and realms. I'm also in EMDR therapy. I'm in like 20 forms of therapy. I just keep dropping them throughout the conversation. Like, I'm this. I will literally try anything. And I have tried anything. Like, I am so not above trying anything.
I'm going to ask you about all the different types of therapies and modalities you've tried.
Yeah. But when I do EMDR therapy and I'm going through a core childhood memory that's really painful, sometimes what I'll do is I'll visualize myself. I'll do like a quantum visualization where I imagine the version I am now going back into that situation when I felt really hurt and alone. And then I'm comforting my younger self. And so I'm like healing my younger self with my current self. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that inner child healing that's so powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
Giving ourselves what maybe we did not get, you know?
Yeah.
What are the challenges and the magic of being autistic?
Oh, beautiful question. Oh, beautiful question. Oh, the challenges, I mean, I could go on for days and days and days. I have a small petty one. Doors are so heavy for me, and I hate opening doors. I hate it so much. Every time I have to open a heavy door, I'm like, why is life so hard? And why can't I do this simple thing that other people seem to be able to do so easily? So there's a lot of things like that where I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel hard for everyone else, but it feels hard for me. But then it goes the opposite way of people, my friends will be like, Jezz, how did you do that? Like, I'll be like, I wrote a song and I recorded it on my computer. And they're like, why does this sound professionally recorded? So I'll just figure things out. And I think the same thing, I've learned though, the same things that I'm so bothered and irritated by are actually the same things that make me the thinker that I am and make me imaginative, because my frustrations end up turning into wishes. So I'll go to a function and be like, wow, it was so loud, and why wasn't there like a quiet place, and why was there no seating, and da-da-da-da, and why was there this weird like power dynamic, et cetera, et cetera. So then when I'm curating or facilitating a space,
You're aware of all that.
I'm aware of all of that. And so I try to just make these tiny adjustments, and it makes me just think differently in that way.
I love the example of the book reading the other day of how maybe you want to share that, just how people line up for book readings to get a signature.
Yes, I'm really sensitive to hierarchy. I don't like it. It makes me feel, it gives me the icks, and it just gives me this visceral sense of, ugh. And I feel like hierarchy and domination is also the reason why we are in the state of the world that we're in right now too. So I'm just always looking at the roots and always trying to address them. And so the first book release event I had, we did a book signing, because that's what you do as an author. You have your book signing and you sit behind a table, and there was this long line. And I'm not going to lie, it was beautiful to see this long line of people for me for about 5 seconds. And then I was like, I don't like this. I really don't like this. Because I don't like putting people through something I wouldn't want to go through. I hate standing. I hate waiting. And so I thought, why are we doing it like this? So then I thought, okay, I just went home. I thought about it for hours and hours and could just fixated on it. And then I thought, okay, next time, no lines. Nope. So the next few stops, I've just been telling people, please don't stand in a line. I will come to you. Just sit there. Sit there. It's so much easier for me to come to you. And then that way I get to like really like sit down with someone face to face too, and really have an exchange instead of me being like behind this table and just
getting an autograph. You're actually creating a connection.
Exactly. Which I'd much rather have. That's why I create work so that I can connect more deeply with people, because I'm so lonely.
How can we make the world more welcoming for disabled and neurodivergent people?
Listen to our experiences, seek out our stories, our voices. As an actor and performer, I want to see more autistic characters played by actually autistic actors, which unfortunately is really rare if we look at the history of Hollywood and cinema. I'd love for us to just have a voice and have a stake. And there's incredible people doing stuff. There's roadmap writers, I believe, and Inevitable Foundation. So there's communities doing it, but I want to see more of the nuance of our experiences too. What is it like for us to wake up and go through a day? And there's a saying, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. The traits show up so differently in people, and everyone has a different experience. So I just want to see as many as possible. I want to see the full spectrum, continuum, array of autistic and neurodivergent experiences. And I want us to see that so we can stop seeing people as there's something wrong with you, and seeing people as, oh, what can I learn from you? There's so much wisdom in disability, in a disabled experience. There's so much creativity too. Oh my gosh. Because imagine if you're disabled by society, you have to find solutions
Every day.
every single day. Yeah. And so there's so much creativity we can learn from that. So I want us to learn from disabled thinkers.
Beautiful. There's a theory you mention in your Confessions poem that disabled people are from the future.
Yes.
Taken from the book written by Leah Lakshmi.
Krishna Summer Singer.
Yes, I'm going to, thank you. Can you talk about what this means?
Yes. Oh, I like thinking about this a lot because of quantum field theory and quantum mechanics, which in summary is, there's multiple time, space, dimension realities, and we can tap into them at any point. I like thinking about it in terms of, why is it so hard for me? Oh, it's because I'm from the future. It's because I'm from the future where actually community care, everything is oriented around community care, actually where we've abolished these systems of domination. I'm from the future where we live in harmony with each other and everyone has what they need. Everyone has their basic needs met. No one is struggling in order to eat and be housed. That's a vision I have for the future. I believe that it's possible. And so I'm from there. And that's why it's so frustrating for me to live in this reality and be like, why are y'all treating each other like this? Like, what are y'all doing? This is this is not the way. And that's what gets frustrating too. And I think, same could be said about so many people of marginalized identities where we have to be so innovative because we're feeling the weight of all the isms and of all the oppression. And so we're building new worlds with our communities and our friendships and how we design our lives. So I just always think about that when I'm like, why is it so hard for me right now? It's because I'm from the future. So it's part coping mechanism and part like vision for the future.
I love that. I'm joining you.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, I've had this since October 7th. I've actually had this just visualization kind of daily practice where I just envision like what liberation feels like in my body.
Yes.
How does that feel? How does that feel in my body? And I totally instantly relax, start breathing better, everything exhales. I'm like, oh, this is what liberation feels like,
Yes. Because how do we know to move towards it if we don't know what it feels like?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so much about embodiment. We can't just liberate
Think
up
our
here.
way through.
Exactly. We have to do it through our body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are consent, agency, and choice so important?
Oh, this is my consent, agency, and choice are like my trifecta of access. I'm always drawing charts. I have a bunch of charts in the book of this is what I think, how everything is connected.
I love the charts. I love all the diagrams and charts.
Yeah. I thought about that because access is something I think a lot about. And it was something I also thought a lot about once I started modeling in 2021 and doing a lot more on-camera work. And being on set and meeting a lot of people for the first time. And I would get overstimulated or just things would happen where I'd be like, okay, I really need to know how to advocate for my access needs, but I need to identify them first because I just feel it, right? I just feel uncomfortable or overstimulated, but I don't know the
what
sequence.
to ask for.
Exactly, like what sequence of events. And so it came from some of my experiences and also just studying. There's a great book by Alice Wong, Disability Visibility, which is a collection of essays from disabled people of all different types of experiences. And so reading that really helped me too. And once I kind of just started to connect the dots of me and a bunch of disabled friends too, I thought, okay, consent, agency, choice. Consent as in, are people even asking for our permission to, let's say like, if someone uses a wheelchair, are they asking before they touch the wheelchair? That is like an extension of them. We need to just not assume things and really ask for permission. Are you okay with this? Can I do this? Do you need this? Is this okay with you? I think there's a lot of history of people infantilizing disabled people and thinking that we can't do something because of how we look or just how we identify. And you just never know. We have to have that conversation with people and ask, which brings me to agency. Give people the agency to make choices, to share what they want, to disclose what they want. I think that's also something that comes up a lot with disability, is that I think disabled people are often forced to disclose a really uncomfortable and sometimes inhumane amount of information in order to get their needs met. And so I think about agency, choice, consent. I think of all those things as, how do you respect someone? Like at the end of the day, it's just like, how do you respect someone?
Core.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in our culture and where we are, those things aren't normalized. And so I'm very passionate about normalizing all of those things.
So wild.
Yeah.
Like respect seems like the basic thing we should all be doing with each other, you know?
Right? Yeah. You would think, but I guess it's like, you know, that quote, you can only meet people as far as you've met yourself. So I feel like a lot of people don't even respect themselves. They don't respect themselves and don't listen to themselves, and it's because we're incentivized not to.
In your book, you say we are our own best healer. How? And how do we practice feeling safer and freer in our bodies?
So while I've been on this wild healing journey of, I've gone to see a shaman and done a soul retrieval. I've taken solo trips. When I was working in advertising, I would just be like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I'm just going to go somewhere for a week by myself. Cacao ceremonies, human connection ceremonies, many, many, many different kinds of therapists, psychedelic therapy, etc. And throughout all of those experiences, I was just, each one would open me up and be like, whoa, I didn't know I could do this for myself. Like even with EMDR, it surprises me every single time what comes up of what I say, because I'm really healing myself in the moment. I'm talking to myself. I'm pulling out of me some deep wisdom. Actually, my Korean name means one of great wisdom. My Korean name is also my middle name, Suji. So I'm always just thinking like, okay, there is a well of wisdom within me. How can I pull from it? And it's so shocking what I say, the things that come out. I mean, even in hearing some of the things that you're reading from my book, I'm like, I wrote that? Wow, okay. Like, it's so lovely to hear other people reflect it back. So I'm like, wow. Because so much of art making is channeling and really just getting out of the way. So even in writing my book, I like to tell people, I am not trying to change you, and I am not trying to heal you. I am only providing tools, language, space for you to do that work yourself, for you to heal yourself. And I feel like that's what I've learned from the best healers I've worked with. They always tell me, they're like, hey, I am not healing you. I am only holding space for you to heal yourself. And that feels so much more empowering.
So empowering.
Right. And gives me so much more agency. Yes, exactly. And then helps me realize, build that trust so I can keep doing that work myself.
And not feel like you need something from outside of you to heal you.
Exactly. Because, I mean, we're going to talk about the whole, like, commodification of wellness and a lot, especially a lot of Eastern healing practices. But I think, and working in advertising, I'm not going to lie, I feel like I was just buying my way into healing too. Just pay for all of these courses, pay, and do all these things when I was in a place to. But then I became in a place where I couldn't do that anymore. I literally could not afford my healing practices anymore. And then I thought, well, okay, I just have to get resourceful and really tap into the things I have within me, and also lean on friendships and community.
Yeah, of course. How can we practice feeling safer and freer in our bodies?
My therapist taught me this safe, calm place exercise. I write about it in my book too, but you just kind of, you settle into your body and you close your eyes and you just breathe deeply. And I like to imagine this kind of grounding cord coming from my like pelvis all the way up to the top of my head. And this grounding cord, I just breathe into it and I breathe in and out. And then I imagine what is the like most idyllic scenario of peace and serenity and safety for me. So sometimes I'll imagine myself on a hammock by myself or with my loved ones. I'll imagine giant green pastures, big fluffy clouds, flowers and trees, just covered by nature in the most serene environment. And because I've learned this a lot from, I studied psychology in college and I'm still a big neuroscience nerd, but our brain doesn't know the difference between actually experiencing something and then us like experiencing it in our head. That's why a lot of actors, they're really going through that experience. They're really
Embodying
going there.
it, yeah.
Exactly. And so the body can't tell, oh, this is just in the head. So we can use that for our benefit too, in that, you know, that's true for intrusive thoughts and negative thoughts, but it's also true for positive thoughts. If I imagine it, my body thinks, oh, we're actually there. And it just takes kind of that like going inward, which isn't always easy.
Yeah, it's
easy
kind of like my
practice.
liberation practice
Yes.
of visualizing and feeling that and how that feels and how that helps me just exhale and start yawning.
Exactly.
You know, and
Yawning
like-
is a huge, I learned that yawning is a
so
huge
good.
sign that you're relaxed and you're safe. Yeah, because when I take weekly vocal lessons, and when I'm singing with my vocal coach, I'll yawn a lot, and I used to feel like bad, like, oh, I'm so sorry, and I promise, like, I'm not trying to be rude. And he was like, no, like, yawn all you want. That's actually a great sign you're releasing things.
So good. Yeah, I always tell people to just fake yawns until they start having real yawns, and it totally calms the body down.
Wow.
Just fake it,
Great.
fake it, and then the
Vegas-
real yawns kind of kick in. So good. It's so simple too.
Oh, great hack.
Being in a relationship means that we're going to get hurt,
Yep.
right? Can you share more about how you found healthy ways to be in a relationship?
Oh, ongoing journey for sure. My neurodivergence makes it so that I've noticed throughout my life, I get irritated and annoyed more quickly than maybe someone who, I don't know if it's my traumas too. It could be my traumas, my neurodivergence, etc. But I notice I get bothered and annoyed really easily. And I go through these really cycles of like intense bursts. And so throughout my life, I've just like gotten really close to people and then we just fall out. And once I noticed that pattern, that's a really hard pattern to just kind of like look at and be like, oh, there's something in common among all those and it's me. And so that's a lot of the work I do with my therapist of, all right, this has come up. How do I move through it? How do I, my studies of abolition too teaches me to try not to dispose of people and at the same time have boundaries when I need to. So it's this constant kind of dance of nuance and discernment of, all right, do I want to be in relationship with this person? Well, how are their values? What's their vision of the world? Is it aligned? Do I feel safe with them? Do I feel safe to express my multitudes? I think that's key for me too. And throughout the years I've had different boundaries and lost friendships because of that. The past 6-7 months, my friendships have definitely changed
Me
too. Yeah, I'm sure, right? Because we just can't move forward in the same way.
I mean, we can't move forward with people who want to see our oppression.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Yeah, but I keep also thinking about we hurt each other because that's what it means to be in relationship, because we're just inevitably going to like bump heads. But then also that is the same way that we can heal and connect too. So it's just kind of unavoidable. And I think about that when I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be like, I just want to be by myself and I just want to work on my art and just do my little thing. And then I realize, oh, my art's not even going to get very far by myself.
Yeah. I was just thinking, James Baldwin said, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and right to exist.
Exactly.
So I think that's kind of the boundary, right? Like, I mean, I grew up in Beirut where we are constantly debating and arguing about everything, but then I can kiss and love you and hold you. And, it's like we can still have those hard conversations with people, but then, genuinely wanting that person to feel free in the world and have rights in the world is kind of where, that's where
dignity is the line. Do you have dignity? If not, goodbye.
Yeah, there's like a minimum that's needed.
Yeah, if not, I hope to meet you in the future.
Yeah, exactly. How has healing allowed you to see possibility, to dream big?
Another kind of parallel path of, as I've healed, I've come deeper into my different identities, and I've also evolved so much as an artist, because when I am healing and learning how to accept myself and explore my inner world and just let it out and let it express itself and let it play, let it dream, let it imagine, then I get to just explore things that I wasn't able to before. One example, the first example that comes to my mind is I'm on this songwriting a journey that is so random. It's so random to me.
I love it. It's so good, though. But it probably has to do with your throat chakra and just activating, being heard in the world.
Yes, right? That's such a great point. It is very, very much that. Because humming is so healing too. And I've been in, actually this came from my visualization practices. So I started visualizing after I read this book, Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. And that was the first time I really let myself practice my imagination, because at first I couldn't really, and even now, I don't really see things, I feel them. Like they come to me through sensations. Like even when I say my safe, calm place exercise, I don't necessarily see the green pasture, I feel that I'm in it. So I was doing a visualization exercise and I thought, okay, what do I want? Like, radical question. As someone who's just kind of been in survival mode so much, what do I want? And once I asked myself that and I visualized and I let myself go there, I saw myself singing on this stage. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not a singer. I don't even know if I can sing like that. I don't know if people will come see me sing. Like, there's so many logistical things that doesn't make sense, but it felt
expansive.
It felt so real. Like nobody could tell me that feeling that I wasn't experiencing. That was absolutely future me telling present me, like, hey, this is where we are. Like, just whether you like it or not, this is your future. So you better figure out how to get here. So then I was like, okay, logistical brain, I guess the most logical thing I can do is take voice lessons. Let me just train my voice and see where it goes. And I'm so much in this era of I'll just try it. Why not? Why not? Why not? If I don't know how to do it, I'll teach myself. All that we've been witnessing over the past year, and really the past few years in the pandemic too, just so much has been exacerbated, these systems of domination and power, where I'm like, wait a minute, y'all are just making this up. I feel sick seeing what's happening and seeing how our government has been responding to it and seeing how friends respond. It so much makes me feel sick to the point where I am questioning everything. Why is it like this? Why are we here? How did we get here? Why is everything is made up and everything is arbitrary? Why don't we just shift things and make it different so that, how about we just don't mass slaughter people? It just, as an autistic person especially, it feels so baseline, shouldn't we all be thinking like this? And so I think while I'm thinking this, then I think, well, if y'all are doing all of this, I can do anything too. But my anything looks like dreaming and creating and envisioning and playing and imagining. So then I thought, well, why don't I'll just try writing a song. Let me just try. I've been wanting to for forever. Why don't I just try? And I unlocked for the first time this feeling of, they say be a channel, right? Something I think a lot about is Martha Graham. this choreographer said to fellow choreographer Agnes DeMille, your job as an artist is not to judge your work as good or bad. Your job as an artist is to keep the channel open. So I am always trying to keep the channel open, but I can't keep that channel open if it's muddied by all of these limiting beliefs or whatever it is, projections. And so when I let myself just flow with the song, and then the song came out, and then I thought, whoa, how did I do that? And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm feeling the fruits of my labor in my healing work. I'm feeling
Things are opening.
Yes, I'm feeling the openness of the things that I have worked so hard to clear the way of, like taking
cobwebs.
out the muck. Exactly, like the cobwebs and the sticks and the leaves, and now I'm clearing it, and that's why I can access it. So it really comes back to, accessing yourself for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have 2 7-year-old twins, and they love singing. And when I told them one day that they can write their own songs, they've been just inventing songs.
Wow.
Like they'll just be in the bathroom, and they'll just be making up their song. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Wow. And to just get that permission, hey, did you know that you could do this?
You can write your own song. You don't have to sing a song that exists. And suddenly it's like been this huge unlock for them where they just invent songs and they write about their lived experiences, like, I don't know, about flowers and I don't know, whatever.
That makes me so happy that you're giving that gift to them at such a young age.
Yeah, it's cool to see that light bulb, turn on.
Wow.
What tools have you relied on your healing journey?
Friendship, for sure. For sure. I'm really passionate. Over the past year, I've been especially passionate about opening the conversations around SI, suicidal ideation, and taking the shame away and really letting people know actually it makes a lot of sense to have that ideation in the times we're living in. Like, actually, that's a perfectly reasonable mindset to be in. So let's take the shame away from that, and then let's talk about it. Because I think I just hate the idea of suffering in silence. And I'll write affirmation to myself. I refuse to suffer in silence. Because that to me is part of my dignity of not suppressing myself. And so one of the tools is, calling on friends when I feel really, really, really low, which is really hard. It's still something I'm learning. And even the other day, a friend called me and said, hey, I'm just checking in on you. And I just told them straight up, I was like, I have really been in the gutter. Like, it's been bad. And then my friend was like, okay, call me anytime. Call me anytime. And if I will pick up if I'm available. If not, I will call you right back. But you are not alone. You do not need to do this alone. And so giving a chance for my friends to reflect that love back to me, because I'm such a words of affirmation person. Like, I really need to hear someone. I don't care if I've been friends with someone for 10 years. I need to know, do you still love me? Do you still care about me? Like, I need to hear that affirmation. So affirmations, conversations with friends is a big tool. And dreaming, for sure dreaming. I think that's why I've been in this kind of, like, why not? I'm working on so many projects right now, like working on my second book, writing these songs, and working on the second season of my podcast and all these different things, because I'm thinking, well, if I am this depressed and this anxious and this just, so I feel such in despair about the world, I need hope. And Miriam Kaba, this incredible abolitionist, says hope is a discipline. So that means we have to practice it every day. And I practice that through my creative projects and through imagination and through meditation and conversations like this and connecting with people, so that I know, okay, we're not doing it alone. Like, you're doing it in this way, I'm doing it in this way. So we're all coming together to build this world, which means it's possible. It's possible. And Grace Lee Boggs says, another world is happening, another world already exists, actually. So these things that we think are,
goosebumps.
like we think it's so far off. Like, abolition is so far off, collective liberation is so far off, universal healthcare is so far off, all these things. But actually, people are already doing it in pockets around the world, and even just around us. People are creating those communities and systems of care that we need.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Why is using words to express feelings so powerful?
sometimes I can't access the feelings until I have language because I'm such a verbal processor. I learned this phrase the other day, hyperverbal, and I think that's me. I think it's people who need to verbalize things in order to process it. And I will voice note record myself processing things all the time. That's why talk therapy actually really works well for me, because I really like to heal through conversation. Sometimes I just don't know what these experiences are until there's language, because language helps give me frameworks. And then the frameworks help me understand, like that's a lens in which I look at my life through. So then I can say, oh, okay, I can organize it better and then organize my needs around it and kind of address the wounds and the pain. But so much of it, I don't know if it's because I'm a writer, if it's whatever, how my brain is. It's
Maybe
just,
something you started at a young age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Language became the access point, entry point.
I love in your poem, Feelings of Seasons, you talk about seeing our emotions as temporary sensations, like seasons, like weather patterns that will change, and instead of blaming ourselves, we can just adjust our care. What could or should that care look like?
That's something I learned from reading a lot of Buddhist text and studying mindfulness practices and reading Thich Nhat Hanh's work. And I thought, wait, I can see these feelings as temporary. They feel so, for me, they feel so extreme. The scale in which I feel things are just so grand and visceral that I have to tell myself, once I discovered that language of, okay, feelings are clouds passing by in the sky, or feelings are a river and you're just kind of swimming with them, that gave me this peaceful imagery of thinking, oh, okay, so I don't have to completely spiral my life and completely like throw a fit about where I am, because this isn't final and no feeling is final. But to be honest, that's one of the hardest things to practice for me, to remind myself that. And that's the reminder that I need most often from other people. Because in the moment, I'm like, what do you mean? Because I'm feeling this and it hurts. It hurts really bad.
Yeah. It's hard to sometimes see a way out when we're in it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the feelings are real.
Yeah, and that's why conversations are important like this. That's why this series is so important, because then people can see, oh, people have been through this before and are still going through it and are still just living with those feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's so much power of community in healing. What has been the role of community on your own healing journey? And how do we hold each other on this path? You know, and can we find more opportunities to create intimacy?
I love that word, intimacy.
Yeah, me too.
I am such a sucker for intimacy. I'm like, all right, let's look into each other's eyes.
I love, somebody once broke it down for me and said, into me see. So into me see. And I was like, yes, that you see inside of me, you see me.
Right?
That's what intimacy is.
Yeah.
So
Which
beautiful.
feels like the antidote to loneliness. Because to me, I write this in the book, to feel alone is to feel unknown. Like nobody really knows you, which is such a heavy feeling of like just moving through this world with billions of people, but nobody knows my heart, my dreams, my wishes, my frustrations. I think community is where we practice intimacy. And these systems of harm isolate us and teach us that we need to hide. And so when we dare to be intimate, when we dare to be vulnerable with each other, and when we're honest about our experiences and we just share our process, that it's not easy, and but that you can do it anyways. But community is everything to me. It's friendship is everything to me. I'm not super close with my family also, my bio family. So my chosen family is all I have. My friends are my family. They mean everything to me. I will go to the lengths of the world for them. And I think There's a really incredible scholar, Alon Lopez, who said friendship is the strongest form of abolition because it's a way to create a sense of belonging that doesn't rely on the state, which I thought was so profound. And community and friendship is where I get to also unmask as an autistic person who has been masking my entire life. And, you know, I'm late realized, so I didn't know I was autistic until I was in my late 20s. So by then I just, you know, built a whole life with me masking, and I thought, okay, how can I unmask safely? Because workplace is not going to be where I unmask safely. So I thought, oh, friendship is where I can unmask in safety, where I can let down my guards, where I can be silly and goofy and weird, silent, loud, where I can really exist in all my multitudes. And I think a lot about what keeps us from knowing each other, because we are so not in this practice of learning how to be vulnerable and how to hold someone else's vulnerability. I think a lot about how a lot of us aren't taught how to listen, how to be active listeners, because that's something I had to literally train myself. Like, I had to sit myself down and be like, okay, Jezz, we need to learn how to listen, which I learned is so much about listening to yourself and how you talk to yourself while you're in conversation with someone. And so I think intimacy is the antidote to so much right now. But in order to experience that, we have to kind of identify what blocks us from experiencing it. And I've learned, and this is an ongoing practice, but I've learned how to hold space for someone when someone is down bad, like they're just in a really bad place. Instead of trying to solve them and fix the problem or make them feel like there's something wrong with them, just being like, I am so sorry you're going through that, and I see you, and just get it out, and really just letting it be expressed so that it's not just festering and calcifying.
Yeah, sometimes people just need somebody to listen. They don't need somebody to fix anything. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I always love, you know, like, do you need advice or do you need me to just be here, you know?
Yes, that's such an important practice. Such an important practice.
Yeah, because a lot of people just jump to, like, trying to fix it because the discomfort is too much.
Yes. Which I think that is a huge gateway to intimacy too, of sitting with the discomfort. I designed my life around community so much, and I always think about how in a single week I can spend so much time, like hours, just going through logistics with friends. Like, okay, when are you free? What should we do? How can we meet? All right, and coordinate that. And there's discomfort and annoyance in that, and it takes labor. I actually write in the book, love like it's the most important job you have in your lifetime. Because if we actually see it as, and maybe this is my Capricorn speaking of, I'm not afraid to work. I'm not afraid of the labor. I actually think there can be a lot of joy and beauty in it. And so I think about it like that. Like, actually, yeah, it is a job to coordinate with friends. And I'm going to make that part of my job throughout the week, like, and find value and meaning in that.
So what has helped you feel less alone in the world? I know we talked about community, but is there anything else?
Art, for sure. Art, music, films. I love TV. Love TV. That's what really made me realize I'm an actor, that I just found so much healing through TV. Like, I will just cry watching someone who I feel seen by. And watching someone going through a challenge, and they have their mission, and then they fall and fail and fumble, and then you hate them, and then you root for them, and that just feels, I want the full breadth of the human experience. So whenever I see someone embodying the full breadth of the human experience, it makes me feel less alone. I love watching, like, interviews of artists and their process and creative process, because when I see that someone's been able to alchemize their just the, like, ugliest and most uncomfortable and saddest, cruelest things that have happened to them, and alchemize that into something that can help heal themselves and others. Oh, that's
so
what
powerful.
Right? That feels like such a important form of power that we all hold, especially people who are called to the arts.
Yeah. And some of the most profound art is created that way. you know?
Yeah.
You share that you have a vision of helping people not only feel less alone, but feel more alive. Tell me more about feeling more alive.
Yeah. Well, feeling alive to me is the opposite of feeling depressed, because when you're depressed, you kind of don't want to be alive. You're like, what is the point? Everything feels hopeless and everything feels daunting. And so I think, okay, what's the opposite of that? What is the antidote to that? The source of feeling alive comes to me through my creative practices. Like I feel alive when I'm watching a Broadway show, when I'm watching a musical. I love musicals. I feel alive when something just clicks, when I'm writing a poem and I'm like, that was it. That was the word that I needed, or that's the cadence that I want. That's how I want to convey that feeling or that experience. And that's what keeps me going. So I'm like, okay, if depression is what keeps me inside, lonely, isolated, down, lethargic, fatigued, then what can help me feel alive? It's the art, it's the connection, it's the community, it's the visioning. The Robin D.G. Kelly talks about freedom dreaming. It's the freedom dreaming.
So good.
Yeah.
You love helping people realize that there's so many options for them to heal. What modalities have you tried, and how has one modality led to the other?
I am a healing enthusiast in that way. I love to try things. I'm just such a I'll try
Just
it. I'll
the curiosity.
Try it. The curiosity.
It goes back to curiosity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, what can I find out about myself?
Yes. Like, what does this inner world, this inner ecosystem have to show me? Because yes, there's so much hurt and pain in there, but there's also
Joy.
Yes, joy.
And love.
Yes, exactly. And so I've tried, everything, CBT therapy, EMDR therapy, meditation. How I learned to meditate was by taking this course of transcendental meditation. I think that was the style. I've tried chanting. I have gone to cacao ceremonies, plant medicine. I've tried microdosing shrooms. That's been super helpful. I've been in ketamine therapy for the past 2 years. I have tried, lots of herbs. I'm really passionate about herbalism. And learning from indigenous thinkers and really thinking, how can we decolonize and re-indigenize our collective relationship to healing, especially as a Korean American and someone of the Korean and Asian diaspora. I think about all the wisdom within my lineage of traditional Chinese medicine and just even thinking about qi, like the concept of qi. I'm like, I need to move my qi around. That's why it's important to move. And then I like getting creative with it too. I like studying neuroscience and the mechanics of why we think the things we do, and neuroplasticity, how we can change those thought patterns. And for sure, art, writing in all forms, writing poetry, writing essays, writing screenplays, writing songs, truly writing in every form possible, writing love letters. Yeah.
To yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the big things for me on Into Healing is providing accessibility, because a lot of times, especially as we've seen, healing happens either behind a paywall or you have to have a lot of money to do certain things. How do we make healing more accessible for people? And obviously writing is maybe one of the, simplest, ways to start, right?
I believe so much in archiving our stories and archiving our experiences. We're our best and most important healer, and we're also our best and most important historian. Nobody will document our lives like we can, because nobody knows your specific dreams and wishes and frustrations like you. So I love things that archive, where am I right now? What am I experiencing? What do I see in the world? And that's what I did with my book. I think that was a lot of my intention behind the book too. And I made this zine called Through the Void after my first round of ketamine treatment because it was so transformative. And then immediately as I was, coming out of the sessions, and I was just crying and feeling like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have this clarity that I haven't had for I don't even know how long. And then I immediately went into sadness because I thought, there are so many people who are just as depressed as I am who don't have access to this. What about them? And I felt this, it wasn't even guilt, it was just a sense of like longing. Like I wanted that to be accessed by everyone. So that's why I made a zine, and then I put my learnings in there. And as I was getting access to community and building all these friendships that were so healing, I thought, oh my gosh, everyone deserves this. So that's why I started kind of curating things into a book. So I think we can make things accessible by documenting and sharing. And I mean, I learned so much from YouTube, from TikTok, from just people's experiences. I think we're seeing a lot of that with autistic people, especially talking about their experiences of being late realized. That is helping people like me see, oh, okay, I finally relate to someone in a way that I haven't related to before, and now that opens up a world for me.
Yeah, your book does a beautiful job of sharing so many practices. Yeah,
I'm glad that comes through.
Yes, 100%. How would being honest with our fears, wants, needs, without judgment help us heal? And what would this do for our collective sense of safety?
I feel like it would deepen everything. I don't do well with small talk because I'm just like, do we see what's going on in the world? Like, we need to just cut it and just get straight to the heart. Like, let's talk from the heart. And we can't talk from the heart if we're pretending to be okay, or we're just keeping up with this illusion. I also think the illusion is so harmful. Like it's toxic, it's poisonous. It keeps us in these cycles of, again, isolation and pretending, domination, all that.
Harm.
Yes, harm, yeah. And then we put this value judgment of like, if someone's not okay, then they're just a worse person. Like they're not capable. And that's so not true. We all have different capacities and different experiences, different access to different things. So the judgment piece to me comes from, I can't even meet myself if I'm judging myself. I can't meet the depths of it. And then also I can't make the work and write in the ways that actually connect to people, because you can read that sense of bullshit in someone, and you can kind of feel that sense of posturing or pretending or masking. And we all do it in some way or another because it's a survival mechanism. But what if, I think that's just the question I always think, like, what if I just showed up a little bit more honestly? What if I didn't suppress this thought? What if I answered honestly the next time someone asked me, how are you? Which kind of depends on how safe you feel with the person. But I think that's why it's this collective effort of, okay, I can be honest with myself, and then I can make it safer for you to be honest with me too.
Yeah. I love, even the other day when we grabbed a meal with Joelle, how, it took 5 minutes and we were all talking about our traumas. Yeah. And suddenly that makes just going deep creates a sense of safety, because when you're starting to be vulnerable, you just know that it kind of gives everybody else an excuse to also be vulnerable, right?
Yeah, and it gives us a chance to know each other. Because if I know about your traumas, then I can know how to better support you. I can know better how to be in relationship with you in a way where we're both caring for each other. And that's why I think it's important to think about, like, what does a care-centered relationship look like? What does a care economy look like? What would it look like if we designed our economy around caring for each other? Just what if we just envisioned that?
Yeah. Growing up in Beirut, because I grew up in wars, and so much was unavailable. There's no support at the government level. You're in the middle of a war. Care was, I think, what helped us survive. You know,
that's all you have.
that's all you have. People looking out for each other.
Wow.
That's all you have.
Wow.
You know, so when the shit hits the fan, that's all that's left.
Right. Yeah. Because then there is no more separation. There's just, okay, well,
If you don't have food and I'm not feeding you, you're not gonna survive.
Exactly.
In your poem, if I were to describe my depression to you, you say we must divest from harm and invest in care, which we just kind of mentioned. How do we transform harm into care?
I have a chart about this in the book, Transforming the Cycle of Harm into Care, where I thought about, I'm always zooming out, and I'm thinking, okay, why does someone cause harm? For me, I don't believe that it's because someone's fundamentally bad. I think I have another poem in the book about how there are no moral binaries, because it's not that people are monsters, it's that people are put in situations that bring out the monster in them. And so I'm always thinking about, okay, what made the villain actually? Because what if we can all be villains? Maybe we can all, that's what James Baldwin talks about too, like that cop could be you. You have to think about the cop in your head. So zooming out, kind of parsing out the pieces, if someone harms because they feel harmed and they don't feel safe and they feel like they don't have their needs met and they feel like they've been silenced and suppressed and no one cares about them, then yeah, maybe you will act out. Or if you don't have your basic needs, if you are having housing and food insecurity, and you go and you take some measures to try to secure food or housing for yourself, then how about we look at the conditions that put them in that situation instead of blaming an individual person, and then see, okay, how can we interrupt that cycle? And so I'm always thinking about what cycles are happening and how can we interrupt it. And for me, that's something I learned from abolition, transform cycles of harm into care. Because what did we learn from 2020? It wasn't just about divesting from police. It was about divesting those funds and investing them into healthcare, into mental health care, into resources where community can support, educations support each other. But it's about kind of just, I mean, even in terms of energetics too, where's our energy going towards? And then how can we move that energy so it's going somewhere different? And it is about interrupting that cycle even within ourselves, like that cycle of punishment, of saying, oh, actually, maybe I'm acting like this or I'm feeling this way because of the situation I'm in. So let me be kinder to myself, and then let me try to address this so that I'm not like, it's just all this ripple effect.
Yeah, and self-awareness.
Yeah.
Why is fighting for collective liberation needed now more than ever?
Now more than ever. We're experiencing more death and despair and destruction than we've ever have. We are experiencing things that just feel so deeply inhumane. I think that's what's been so hard to see, the response to all that's been happening. Like, how do you tolerate this? Just as on a human level, forget the history and the politics of it. As a human, how do you tolerate? How do you tolerate seeing someone suffer that much when they don't need to? Actually, this doesn't need to be happening. That's what keeps me up at night. Like, why are we doing this to each other? And then I think, oh, it's because we're doing it to ourselves. And it's because it's what we've been taught. It's what we've been taught that will secure us safety or a position in society that gives us the illusion of comfort or this and that. But all of that is an illusion. Because real safety comes from intimacy and from belonging and care, and also being in right relationship with the planet that we're on. There's just so much at stake, from climate to the legislation, the anti-trans legislation happening, the attack on reproductive rights. Like, there's just so much going on that now is a time for us to think outside of ourselves. And what we were talking about at dinner the other night is, yes, we are in the worst situation we've ever been in, probably in humanity, but also we are also the precipice of something new, and we are building this new world, and we're seeing things crumble. We're really seeing empire crumble. Like, that is not, it sounds so like big, but that's actually what's happening. And so as we see these empires and systems of imperialism, domination fall, because people are becoming awake to the fact that actually there's something different, there's a possibility, we can write our own song, we can change the tune here. And so we're kind of in this symphony of, all right, what can you do? What's your gift? What's your gift? How are you seeing this? And then we all come together, and we all know we need something different. And we all know that we have the possibility as a species to evolve and create something different. So why don't we do that? And that's why we're just seeing so many organizers organizing, and oh, bless all the organizers who have just been, it makes me emotional. Think about all that people put on the line. It's so much to put your entire future on the line to say, like, this is actually, I can't tolerate this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And I know what that's like as someone who's experienced so much chronic pain throughout my life of, like, I can't take this anymore. And so we're at this level of humanity right now where we can't tolerate it, and it's a shitty, shitty, shitty place to be, but it's also a really electrifying, magnetic, expansive, transformative time to be in.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. How does healing help us step into our power?
When we heal, we reconnect to our power. We reconnect to our power. We reconnect to the source of power that is in our roots. We remember our roots, our lineage, our ancestral lineage, our lineage to this planet, like literally rooting ourselves down to the ground. We connect to, I'm such a spiritual person. My spiritual practices mean so much to me. And it's how I connect to this state of kind of interconnectedness and interdependence. It's just opens up so many possibilities. And I say often, one of the biggest symptoms of oppression is a suppression of our imagination. We are taught it can't be any other way. I mean, even in advertising, I'd be like, can we do it this way? And they'd be like, no, we can't. I'm like, why? Because it's just always been done this way. And I'm like, well, why? And I'm just always like, ask why. And like, well, what about this? And what about this? And then I would just figure out different frameworks and then be like, well, I figured out a way. Can we do this? And then a lot of the times they'd be like, okay. And so that's something I learned from advertising, is that if there isn't a way, you can actually make one, because someone before you made that up. And that's why it's been done that way, because someone just said so. And so we're in this state of imagining and thinking, all right, well, let's just do it in a more inclusive way, in a more honest way, in a more compassionate way. And all of that feels healing, because healing is transforming. And so anytime we get to transform something, even 1%, even a little bit, that is a form of healing us collectively.
Sure is. What are some of your spiritual practices, if you don't mind sharing?
I meditate daily, even if it's for 2 minutes, or even if it's 30 seconds if I'm feeling really low. I meditate. I journal a lot. I am just visualizing my thoughts on paper. Singing for sure is so spiritual to me. Humming and just hearing my voice, opening up that throat chakra, as we were saying.
Hearing our voices is so powerful.
It's so powerful. That's why I think karaoke is a form of therapy. Karaoke is group therapy.
Yeah, especially if as a child you weren't heard. Yes. Being able to hear your own voice is so healing.
Right? Yeah. Right. And the fact that nobody has that like exact frequency and vibration of your voice. There's so much healing in that like uniqueness of, oh wow, like this is what I've been given in this lifetime. This body, this voice, this mind. everything. This is what I've been given. And I feel like my role as an artist and as someone who's on this healing journey for the rest of my life is just constantly checking in with myself. Like, how can I use my voice and the gifts that I've been given to be of service to something greater than myself, to be of service to collective.
Yeah, speaking of humming, it reminds me of, I heard once that the word that we've heard the most is our name. So with like children, if you just hum their name or chant their name or sing their name over and over again, it does something really amazing to the nervous system. Wow. Just hearing your name over and over again, there's something so soothing about it.
That makes a lot of sense, because that's it's feeling seen.
Yeah.
That's someone saying, I see you. And not only I see you, but I see you beautifully. Wow.
Yeah. Why is evolving, changing, growing so important in a lifelong journey?
I feel, again, the Capricorn's coming out. That's my responsibility on Earth, Like, that's my responsibility.
As a Capricorn.
Yes, like, I'm not shy of taking responsibility. I actually I find joy in that. So I feel like that's, how can you, and Simone has said, the role of an artist is to reflect the times. How can you, either as a human or as an artist or as a friend or whatever it is, how can you just be alive on this earth and not think about how your actions affect other people? That's our power, that's our impact, and a lot of us aren't aware of that. As someone who's, just been so highly, super sensitive my whole life, I've had to learn the hard way that how people hold their energy will affect me. And if someone isn't responsible with their energy, then it will leave me in a state of feeling panicked or dysregulated, etc. So I always think, okay, I don't want to do that to other people. I don't want to make other people feel what people have made me feel. So I'm always thinking about, okay, how can I hold my energy responsibly? And my spiritual practices help me with that, of just kind of zoning into myself, tuning into myself, and listening to what's going on so I can validate.
Yeah, some people find change so hard, like it just makes them so uncomfortable and there's so much discomfort in it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they think that on the other side of it, there's just things that open up, possibilities that open up on the other side of discomfort. But then oftentimes, as we've experienced, it's like the more you make your way to the other side, the more you're like, holy shit, like this whole new world has opened up now.
So it's a fear.
Yeah.
It's a fear of change without realizing change. Obviously, I'm very passionate about it. Change is something I think about literally 24/7. But I think about how actually we're changing already, and it's about just accepting it a lot of time, because
everything's changing.
Everything's changing.
Every moment, like everything's like dying. Nothing stays the same ever.
Yep, like we're different than when we first sat down. Yeah. People listening to this are different than when they first started listening. And I write in the book, I reference Octavia Butler's parable, The Sower, and Octavia Butler said, all that we touch, we change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. And then I iterated from that, and I thought, okay, then change is a creative practice. Actually, it's a collaboration with change. And then once I made that into this joyful practice of, I like making things, like I like creating things, I like art, I like creativity, then that lens helped me be a little less afraid. But also, I think as a multiply marginalized person, a lot of us can't afford to be that afraid of change because we're just always having to adapt.
How do we make room for the people who don't want to change?
That one's hard. That one's really hard because, you mentioned something that Baldwin has taught us, that our differences based on just difference of opinions or difference of fundamental beliefs of what someone deserves and what it means to be human and alive, and if it comes down to dignity and respect. But I believe that there's enough people building a different world. So I really tried to focus my energy on that. And I've gone through my phases of, I've been doing this work of change for a decade now. And I did go through phases and still sometimes do. My public speaking engagements are very much for that educational piece of trying to be that bridge. But in my personal life, I am interested in building with people who are already living in the future, who are already practicing the future, because that bridge building, some people are called to that work. I am not. My work is in building the worlds over here. So I put all my focus in putting my energy into that and learning how to really, as Grace Lee Boggs says, transform myself to transform the world. I'm as much a part of the world as anyone else is too. So me changing and transforming myself and thinking about how all those biases and systems of isms and those things, the policing, the punishment lives within me, and then rooting that. I'm focused on doing that work and doing it alongside people who are doing that work, witnessing people doing that work, letting myself be witnessed in doing that work. And that to me feels like way more kind of expansive and momentum building direction than the bridge building. But again, that's just my personal journey.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you say, our work kind of radiating out. What we also, I think, don't talk about enough is what we create out in the world going in, right? Like the harm we create in the world by harming other people on the outside, we're actually harming ourselves, right? Just thinking about the planet, right? Like forget the actual humans that are dying, like the planet. We all exist on the same planet. We all breathe the same air. We all, our ecosystems are all connected, How can that not connect to somebody on the other side?
Exactly.
It totally does.
Exactly. How we live our lives is such an offer. It can be such an offering to collective liberation. That's why I say it's about designing your lifestyle around liberation. What does that look like to where you spend your money, how you spend your time, what words you use, what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're intaking? All of that is world building to me. Everything you eat, everything you do, every thought that you think. So
yeah. 100%. I love this one saying, as you worship, so you become.
Oh, wow.
What you listen to,
Yep.
what books you read, who you surround yourself with, that's who you will become.
Exactly.
So how can we be more mindful about all of that?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. One little part of your book that really touched me, where you were talking about how we have no queer elders, and that really, really touched me. And I didn't know if you wanted to read something around that or...
Sure. So I will read a poem in the beginning of the book called Where Are Our Elders? I was thinking a lot about lineage. I actually was thinking a lot about this while watching Pose. I love TV, love just immersing myself into the characters and the world of a TV series. And while I was watching Pose, I was learning a lot about the AIDS epidemic and how I think we've all seen pieces of it and seen it portrayed in different ways in media, but something about that show really hit it for me, where I was like, oh, so many of our elders have been killed, by, to be honest, been killed by the government because they were not taking care of us in the way that we deserved to. So I just thought about, oh my gosh, I felt so much grief at the lack of elders that we have. And as someone who's felt so lonely and so without guidance throughout my life, I just thought, now I'm just angry. I'm angry that these systems of oppression have taken something else away from me that I could have had. Because imagine how much wisdom and how much guidance and how much less painful the experience of coming into your queerness can be if there were more elders around us. But so many of them were killed. So I just thought about that and I really wanted to put that on paper. So this is Where Are Our Elders? During the 1980s and 90s, people in positions of political power let thousands of people die because they were afraid of the growing visibility of queerness. of a pleasure revolution. I learn about this from watching shows, reading books, searching phrases, collecting language. I learn about this because there are no queer elders around me who teach me what it means to live as part of a legacy. They severed a connection to people who could have taught us about ourselves. A whole generation of ancestors missing, an entire era of elders framed like suicide. They called it a health epidemic, called it an act of nature. Call it a God complex, call it what it is, call it negligence, call it murder, call it the government killing our ancestors. Even after writing that, I was like, oh, I went there. And it kind of scared me to speak it so plainly. And that's why I knew, oh no, it needs to stay as it is. It needs to be spoken plainly, because how much have we lost by these systems of domination and by people's fear of people who aren't like them. I feel so strongly about just speaking things plainly, and I specifically said frame like suicide too, because this is something I feel very strongly about, because I had a close friend when I was 12 or 13 die by suicide, and that completely changed the course of my life. And it made me really awake to, oh, there are people having experiences that we can't even tell. Like, how can a close friend be going through something and me have no idea? It made me so sad that he was holding all of that and not being able to share that with friends. I mean, we were also 12 or 13, so we didn't have the language, but I really believe that keeping someone alive is a collective job, is a communal job, and that when people end their lives, it's because they are feeling so hopeless and lonely and alone, and like there's no light or tunnel out. And I feel so strongly about being that light and tunnel for each other by being invested in each other's quality of life. And so that's why I've been in a practice of trying to just talk about SI more openly, because I want to give my friends and the people who love me a chance to care and love and support me, because they don't know what I'm going through day to day unless I share it with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You write in your book, we often blame individuals for their circumstances. Why don't you work harder? Why aren't you healthier? Why do you need so much help? Why are you so angry? This is conditioning of ableism and racism. Why are people considered disposable?
Capitalism, I guess. Because if you don't produce, and if you don't fit into this box of what is demanded of you, and if you don't perform at this very robotic and machine-like pace, then you're disposable. Then you're not worthy. Then you don't need to be here. There's another person who can fill your shoes, because there's another person willing to do it, because another person is also in survival mode. And it just doesn't sit well with me. It just feels so fundamentally inappropriate. And it feels like also, what are we missing out on? We're missing out on so much. I mean, thinking about unemployment rates of disabled people, neurodivergent people, people who think differently and fundamentally experience the world in a different way, we're missing out on so much wisdom. So I think a lot about what if we all were honest about how inhumane these conditions are and how no one should be going through them? And what if we just decided to do one little thing differently, and the next day we do one little thing differently again and again and again, and that's how cultural shifts happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in the pandemic I started baking and giving neighbors
That's so sweet. I love that.
I think it was a way for me to channel my anxiety, when it first all kicked in. Yeah.
I love that.
Like there's something that we can't control. How do I put my energy into something more productive?
I love that. Right. Because that's a different form of productivity. Yes, it's like
it's a more nurturing.
Yes,
it's a more
nurturing.
care and nurturing.
Exactly.
And like, I know you're anxious too. Here's a loaf of bread, or here's a carrot cake, or yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yes. More of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jezz, is there anything that you feel we haven't covered that you would really love to share
I just want everyone who is watching this, listening to this, to give themselves permission to be who they are, who they've always been, who they want to be. I really, really feel like who we decide to be right now in this moment in time is going to define who we are for the next 10, 15 years, and not just defining us and our lives, but is going to define society, civilization, which feels really like a mega big daunting thing. But again, leaning into that responsibility of being alive in this time, how beautiful is that? How wonderful is that? And we're not doing it alone. There can be magic and joy and play and fun in it too, if we are doing it with people where we're like, okay, we both believe in each other's dignity and we have similar visions. There's so much more that becomes possible with that. So I just want people to really give themselves permission to, all right, who is it that I want to be? Who is it that I've always wanted to be? And how can I give myself permission today to do one thing that helps me align to that version?
I love that. Thank you, Jezz. Yeah. It's been so like heartwarming sitting here with you.
Oh, thank you for providing the space for us to have these conversations, and I hope it reaches far and wide and helps people find ways to heal, because there are so many.
There are so many, as you've taught us and told us. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. You can connect with Into Healing on TikTok and Instagram for more inspirational and behind-the-scenes content, and visit our website, intohealing.com, for transcripts and other goodies. Thank you for joining us.